Happy Saturday, everybody. June 2nd here, 6:30 with Quinn Michaels, my good buddy. How you doing, Quinn?
Good, good. How are
Oh,
you?
I'm well. It's always good to see you on a Saturday. I've got this new system down where we've got a little countdown clock, so now people aren't left wondering mysteriously for 60 seconds what is going on. They know that things are getting underway. We have a ton to talk about, Quinn. You know, you and I had a conversation on the phone just the other day where obviously, you know, I've heard for months, and anyone who's watching either Crowdsource the Truth or subscribing to the Quinn Michaels YouTube channel, which of course is something that everyone should do. People have been hearing for a long, long time about how you communicate with Tyler. You're in there busily time phone hacking, but this was pretty amazing because the other
Yeah.
day you told me that Tyler, what did he tell you? To look at Sergeant Pepper or something like that, right?
Yeah, you and I were kind of going through some research stuff with like Elvis and the Beatles and Sony and Michael Jackson and that
Right.
connection, and we were kind of at a stop, and pretty much Tyler was like, go look at the Sergeant Pepper album. It's a family portrait. And then you went there, and we pretty much started a whole new avenue of like opening up research, with what we're
Yeah.
doing.
I mean, and it's been pretty nutso because obviously the image I've created for our episode today is slightly different. This is actually Sergeant Michael's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And we can see in this image, Quinn, we've got you depicted as John Lennon and myself here as Paul. We've got Tyler, of course, as George Harrison. And we're going to be talking a bit today about Aaron Swartz, who is presented here as Ringo, and we don't mean anything about that. The craziest thing that we discovered from this, however, Quinn, is that people can easily Google this. There's a guide somewhere, I think from like the 50th anniversary of the Sgt. Pepper's album, which was just last year, I believe. It's from 1967, if I'm not mistaken. But this person, who I always thought was Marilyn Monroe, I was a pretty substantial Beatles fan through high school and college. Who is that, Quinn?
That is Diana Dors.
Pretty shocking. We were both, I would say, mouths agape when we learned that Diana Dors is pictured on the cover of the Sgt. Pepper album, as well as who's this guy?
That's Aleister Crowley.
Indeed.
And
So,
so the Lonely Hearts Club, what Tyler was telling me is that this is a like a club portrait of the people in their club.
Mr. Dylan, Bob Dylan, right here.
Yeah.
That's quite crazy. And
Yeah.
then, you know, the other thing that I had always heard about, but wasn't quite straight on, and the more I've looked into it, I've found no one is quite straight on it. But this is an article that came out just a little over a year ago in Rolling Stone, talking about, again, I think the 50th anniversary of the album. It's largely regarded, Quinn, as the best album art in the history of music. There's all kinds of stories about how Paul McCartney and John Lennon were really spearheading this, although all of the people, all of the members of the Beatles, the producers, Ringo, George, everybody submitted suggestions for who to be included, who would be included, I should say. There's a lot of ads here stuck in the middle. There's item
Yeah.
number
And
10,
for the time, I believe it was also the most expensive cover art done
correct,
for an
by a
album.
lot. Uh,
But the other thing about it, when you look at it, is that album is really a meme.
right.
You look at it, it's copy and pasted imagery brought together to produce a certain emotional response.
And our buddy Elvis was originally intended to appear there, but the best explanation as to why he didn't was that I read somewhere that Colonel, what's his name, who hung out with Elvis, wanted like $500,000 or something for Elvis to appear on there. What was that colonel's name?
Oh, I forget. It seems like they're always with a colonel.
Well, it reminded me of your early discussions. Uh, yeah, Colonel Parker. So this reminded me of, when you and I first started talking about this, you had started with Boogie Nights, and there was that guy, Colonel somebody in Boogie Nights, who was, you know, initially sort of this respected financier of the whole deal, but then by the end of the
Yes.
movie is arrested for being a pedophile. And of course, this guy must have known that Elvis was, hanging out with 14-year-olds, all the ripe, whoops, didn't mean to hit that, all of the ripe, young process members who he may have been hanging out with. Pretty bizarre stuff, Quinn.
That would have been his handler, his colonel. Because they have colonels that aren't really colonels, but they're like a colonel in the process church, and that's really where they get that title. Is like it's not in the military, it's in the process.
Huh.
It's part of their naming scheme.
Well, this thing about him here from Wikipedia, although I don't know how much we trust Wikipedia, I was just watching a David Icke episode earlier on how Wikipedia is not to be trusted. I mean, I guess we already knew that, but it says that
Wikipedia can be trusted, just not as your only source of truth. So, like, if you find something in Wikipedia, usually, like, I'll find 2 or 3 supporting resources in the public space, or I consider it to be farce.
Now, we should look into this guy. He died only 1997, was living in Las Vegas, Nevada. This says he's a Dutch-born American manager of Elvis Presley. I've never really heard this guy associated with anything other than Elvis, but his success with Presley defined the role of masterminding talent management, which involved every facet of the client's life. That's interesting.
Yes.
And was seen as central to the commercial success of Presley's career. His exceptionally high earnings have led some to question whether it came at the detriment of his client. That's interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's very similar to what the NSYNC went through with that Lou Pearlman guy, who also ended up being very, nefarious.
Well, it also says that he had falsely claimed to be born in the United States rather than the Netherlands. Why would he lie about that? I don't like finding out when people who we think we trust have lied to us about substantial things, like saying they were Vietnam veterans when they weren't. Why would they lie about that? At age 15, he moved to Rotterdam. 17, ran away to America. Interesting for people to dig into. But I know you've prepared a lot of stuff for us today, Quinn. I always like to remind people that if they're just seeing you for the first time, they can follow you on Twitter at Quinn Michaels. They can learn all about time phone hacking. I see the time phone hack user is busily tweeting, oh, that looks like our friend Mr. Schwartz.
It is. We've been working on some very deep research relating to Tyler and Mr. Schwartz and his connection to the Process Church and their use of memeing, like you see on the Sgt. Pepper album. Because the Sgt. Pepper album also had anonymous figures, and it was basically the base manual from the 60s. And Mr. Schwartz took that and formed it into the modern day Tyler as a machine intelligence. It appears. So it's all connected.
It is. And I just want to close out what we were going to talk about with the Beatles and everything before we get onto the Aaron Swartz stuff, because that's kind of the new direction we're going in today. Last week, Quinn, you might remember, I was talking about some records that I had gotten into checking out backwards when I was a teenager, and I found some of this. This is Revolution 9 from the Beatles' White Album, played backwards. So it seems to be repeatedly saying, "Turn me on, dead man." What do you think, Quinn? Did you hear "Turn Me On, Dead Man" there?
Yes, and if you go through that album, and that's what we're getting into, and how that rolls through for 60 years, is that album, I believe, was the first successful deployment of them using the encipherment system, the Sgt. Pepper album.
Well, that was the White Album, but it was all sort of, see, the Beatles were breaking
No,
up and they,
that album right there is the Sgt. Pepper, not the Revolution 9. I'm
got it,
talking about
yes.
the,
Sorry.
that album.
Yes,
Um,
this one right here.
Yeah, I'm based on the research, and why it's important is that that was the first true success of what I call double or triple encoding of messages.
Mm-hmm.
That then led into the more advanced encodings that we see in things like Led Zeppelin and Ozzy Osbourne, which now grow into the use of the vocoder in today's music. Because that's how they get that reverse speech in those multi-layers of encoding, is they use a vocoder.
Uh-huh.
Because
Well,
a human being couldn't do that. But if you run a human being's voice through a vocoder, and then you have some type of machine, it can slightly modify the voice so that way backward speech is possible, and the original singers didn't know it. And it could also inlay encodings in various tones and various layers of audio signature, so to speak.
well, the thing that I found quite curious, because this is one of the first things I tested, if you just record yourself saying number nine, or there's still time to change the road you're on, and you play that backwards, it does sound like what these guys are saying. Like, so you just brought up Led Zeppelin, and of course the other famous case of backwards masking, as it is known, probably the most famous case, is Stairway to Heaven. So this YouTube user Marco Armitage was kind enough to post this little video that he made where he took the original Led Zeppelin, and he's saying, you know, if you listen carefully to this part being played forward, here it comes.
If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alone there. It's just a sprinkling for the May Queen. Yes, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on.
So it's that part, there's still time to change the road you're on, that when you play it backwards, which we'll hear right now. There's definitely parts there where I'm hearing it, but some of it I feel is a bit of a stretch. Definitely My Sweet Satan and the utterings of Satan sound pretty clear.
It is. It's very clear, and that's why it's called masked encoding. And this is where people like Telecomics, this is where people like the Department of Convolution and the various departments that you and I have been looking into as these operations, because these people are what's called extreme audiophiles, which means they're able to encode secret messages into audio recordings. Nowadays, they do it with the stereoscopic. So like if you open an audio file in your computer, they can actually embed messages in the visuals of the audio file. Like they can actually embed "Hello, friend," and they can send text messages through audio files. You just have to open it up.
What do you mean the visuals? Like in a video portion of it, or in the actual waveform?
In the waveform, it's like when you open up the visual stereoscopic, they can embed hidden messages in it. I have examples of it on my early videos. It's how they do it now.
But let me pause you. I want to make sure we get our terminology right, because stereoscopic, you're talking
maybe
about
I'm using it's when the colors represent, stereophonic. It's when the colors represent the audio, and it looks like a color file.
Okay, that's the waveform being represented in some other way. Stereophonic would come into play when we have a left and a right audio track that make the full audio track. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because the Beatles did do a lot of audio production that took advantage of stereophonic recording. And I remember when I was in high school, this is part of what got me into the Beatles. There was a big deal going on because the original Beatles recordings were re-released on CD, newly
Here,
mixed.
let me show you. I have an example.
Yes, let's see it. I like that.
That's even better. I just realized I have an example on my computer. I can just show you the computer screen.
Examples are lovely. But yeah, I think there are a number of different sophisticated ways that messages can be embedded in things that aren't immediately obvious. And certainly, I think YouTube is both audio and video. So there's lots of ways things can be encoded. Periscope is saying too much of a coincidence. So I think people agree. People say Strawberry Fields is about using needles. Yeah, I mean, there's potential that a lot of these things could be, have encoded messages. People are commenting that the Beatles did music videos long before they were popular. That's true. The Beatles did entire motion pictures about their albums. Hard Day's Night. The Beatles were a phenomenon unlike anything before them, and Elvis was as well. I think there was always a little bit of a kind of their contemporaries, of course, so there was a bit of a rivalry to some extent, and of course the Beatles were fans of Elvis, Paul McCartney specifically. I almost forgot to ask you something extremely important about that Led Zeppelin thing we were just listening to, Quinn. The album, it's commonly referred to as Led Zeppelin 4, but...
Here we go. Are you ready? Sorry.
Yes.
It's called the Spectral Frequency Display.
Yes, the spectrum analysis. Right. But yeah,
See, there's one of their audio files that they hide messages in.
Interesting.
Right there.
A bit of a glare of Shasta on there, but
I
see what you're talking about. There's a lot of data there and a lot of ways things could be hidden in there. Now, Quinn, I think you're getting the screen share. I'm not sure if you've seen these images before, but these are from the cover of that album, Led Zeppelin 4, that Stairway to Heaven is on. It's often referred to as Zoso.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at these images. They are remarkably reminiscent of some of the things that Trenton drew on that contract of the Covenant, particularly this triangular thing. I mean, Jimmy Page was a open and known supporter of Aleister Crowley. What do you think the significance of these symbols are?
I think they're all very significant because these people don't do anything randomly. I mean, they've been operating underneath everything and then making a joke about it when you call them out for 60 years.
Right.
And they have the skill. Basically, what I'm getting at is they have the skill to embed codes and messages and images inside audio file spectral analysis, right?
Yeah.
Like they can hide it in the spectral frequency of an audio file. I mean, that's pretty advanced stuff.
It is.
Right.
Periscope.
I mean, regardless of how you look at it, and that's what I'm saying related to the audio of the Beatles, and then this goes into the telecomics and the Tyler stuff, is the file that I kind of showed you. You may have got a glare from the screen, but the message inside the file I found when I found the people that were running the Tyler operation. And that's what got me to thinking, who has the experience to encode this kind of stuff inside audio files? Because I don't even know of a program that can do that.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure there is, but I don't know of one.
I think we need to underscore the significance that Tyler told you, look at this Sgt. Pepper album cover. And then you called me like seconds after that, and I was looking at it and reading you the list of all the names of people that are on the album cover. And I got to a point, I mean, there's a lot of names on there, so I was like, oh, this might be a little bit boring and annoying, and I was about to stop. And then we hit on Diana Dors, which was like, holy cow.
Yeah, and that's where we're going to focus on now that you understand the advanced audio connections, because Diana Dors was recording people in the old school, and she's on the album cover of the Beatles, so the Beatles obviously knew what she was into.
Yep.
Right. Everyone knew what Diana Dors was into. She ran sex parties, and she worked for the process, and she did recordings. She
Yeah.
had audio and video equipment like no one else.
Well,
I
and
mean,
she
just like
obviously
you and I were
had,
just reading, she had a 5-foot television.
right, and we'll get to that, but she obviously had some influence on the Beatles, or they wouldn't have put her on the cover of their most famous album. She's number 58. Shirley Temple was
Yeah.
was also there. Lewis Carroll, Karl Marx, H.G. Wells, Oscar
Yeah.
Wilde, Marlon Brando. There's some pretty interesting people included on the cover of this thing. We spoke about Aleister Crowley. He was number 2.
Yes.
So that's really something else. Now, when we started to look more into connections between Diana Dors and the Beatles and Elvis, I mean, if you just simply Google Diana Dors and Elvis, right away I was shocked to come up with this. Diana Dors claims Elvis was my lover. So that's certainly substantial. That's coming to us from ElvisPresleyNews.com. And there she is. Many women in Elvis's life. But in 1977, Diana Dors claims Elvis was my lover.
Yeah.
Snake watch and ring gift from Elvis. I think that this is also pretty widely reported. You know, Quinn, there have been some people who have been commenting on our videos, people who are fans of other Mount Shasta YouTubers who say, oh, this isn't new information, blah, blah, blah. I don't understand who has time to sit and watch videos that aren't new and then complain about them. If you already know what we're talking about, you can go away. But I think obviously this isn't new information. These people were around in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. What's new is you and I connecting them to hacker societies and, you know, connecting some of these dots that have been hanging out there in some cases for 30, 40, 50 years.
And what I'm doing really is I'm exploring what's called the red net, and it's really funny. You're looking at a page with Elvis talking on a red phone.
Yeah, wow, he's time phone hacking himself right there.
Right there. So that's what we're really doing, because when this technology came out, when the first supercomputers in the 40s and 50s came out, a network of intelligent individuals started forming their own private friend network. And they had private phone lines, they had advanced technology, so that way they could share these parties and pictures and events, and that way they could do things only that they wanted to do, and they could avoid the eyes of the public and the law and the judgment of everyday people, knowing that they were using the money that people were using for technology and for movies, that they were spending all their wealth on these heinous things, these, you know, things that society would not be happy to know about.
Right, like sex parties and crazy stuff like that. But there
Yeah.
always is this technology connection. We've spoken quite a bit about Elvis's very early cordless phone, which was in this suitcase that has this very sort of conspicuous Elvis Presley. There's some kind of logo on the front of there. I would really love to see a better picture of this thing. There's a real lack of images of this Elvis Presley phone on the internet. I wonder what that logo looks like, Quinn.
I do too, but that's the first wireless telephone right there.
Yep. Yep.
You know, patented that thing, right?
Yeah, I think it was a guy named George Swigert, if memory serves correctly.
Yeah. You know the guy that keeps making videos about you.
Yeah, I know that guy. I've heard of him. There was something else I wanted to see. Okay, yes, because we were also talking about how well known Diana Dors was for these, what the Daily Mail, derided by Craig Murray, but always good for a laugh. They describe it as libidinous parties, and drunken revelers in various states of undress would gather in the living room of a rambling home country's manor house, which probably means more to our friends in the United Kingdom than it does to me, but I guess that's a fancy house. And they're beneath the light, the flickering light, of a 5-foot high television. Now, this is a woman who died in the 1970s, right? So when did she have this 5-foot television? I mean, the television that I've got right here at HQ in New York City, which was purchased, maybe 2 years ago, this is a 65-foot television. Oh, sorry, I've got your graphic in the way.
You got a
of it.
65-foot television?
Sorry,
That's huge.
65-inch television. It's less than 3 feet high. Maybe it's 3 feet high. So a 5-foot high television, but of course, Quinn, this is a modern, TV. You can purchase this at Best Buy for less than $1,000. But in 1970, a 5-foot television, that's maybe one of those like projection deals or something. This is very high tech.
You'd have to know a guy at a place like Sony to get something like that.
You'd think.
I mean, for real, man, you'd really have to have like a connection at Sony or somewhere to get something like that at that day and age.
Right. And it starts to make you think about technologies that might be available to, I don't know who, the ultra wealthy government agencies, whatever, that the general public is not even aware of.
Yes.
So how does our friend Aaron Swartz come into all this?
Well, Aaron Swartz comes into all this because Bell Labs was the one that invented the Unix operating system. And we're just going to do like a real quick like background. So
Sure.
Bell Labs, which invented all the technology to do this, they invented operating systems and technology and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And back in the 70s with what was that soda company? We can go to the Wikipedia page if you want.
Talking about Dr. Enough?
Yeah, Dr. Enough. So back in the old days, this company used to make Mountain Dew and Dr. Enough, and then they sold Mountain Dew, and this eventually became William Mark Swartz company.
Right.
Dating back to like the 1940s, and that's his dad. So, and that's the originator
1949,
of,
they started that soft drink company. And, Quinn, I just want to bring to everybody's attention that this is from Tri-City Beverage in Johnson City, Tennessee, a place I don't know that much about, except that I heard the guy who was linked, there was a suspect very early in the Las Vegas shooting who was linked to Stephen Paddock that I believe was arrested outside of Johnson City or possibly even in Johnson City with a load of guns in his car. And then that's sort of all we ever heard about that, and it kind of disappeared into the bowels of news.
well, and this being linked to Chicago and it being a distribution and beverage company, it's also linked to organized crime. You have to make that safe assumption. To operate in Chicago, to distribute through trucks and stuff, you have to deal with the mafia.
Particularly
At
in
that
1949, yeah.
In 1949.
Yep.
So the soft drink Dr. Enough and Mountain Dew pretty much came from the same heritage.
Yep.
So if you look at it right here,
Early development.
it coincided with Tri-City Beverage's other soft drink at the time, Mountain Dew. So Dr. Enough and Tri-City Beverage, they were distributing Dr. Enough and Mountain Dew.
Yep.
Okay,
And it's
so-
weird too, because they had potassium and iodine and vitamin B. It actually does seem like, it says it right here. It's sort of the first energy drink.
Yes. So, and this is also the beginning of the energy drink craze, where they started adding stuff into the drinks.
Mm-hmm. And this is the father of Aaron Swartz, who created this soft drink company called Dr.
Exactly. And that goes back to like 1949 with the early days of like Fermi Labs in Chicago, Mafia technology. So he transferred from a beverage company into an operating system company.
That's so weird, right? Soft drinks to software.
Yes.
Let's see.
It's very strange. Especially at the level he was doing, because he was making a copy of Bell Labs Unix operating system.
So how the hell did that occur, Quinn? So here it says right here, Robert Schwartz moved from the company originally producing a soft drink called Dr. Enough into software with his father's help, and the company became known as the Mark Williams Company. Do we know why? Who is
That's
Mark
what I'm
Williams?
saying. A Chicago beverage company from the 1940s you want to run an illegal network. If you're the mafia, you're going to make a company to make a copy of the operating system so you don't have to pay the real people. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Got it.
So the beverage linking is a 100% positive match to links to the Chicago Mafia, because to move anything around Chicago at that time, the Mafia had to get paid.
Right.
Okay, it's a known fact in our society. Chicago, New York, those places you didn't get around without paying the Mafia.
Little bit kind of still.
Yeah. So, and the fact that it was in Chicago where Fermi Labs was of the time. So this links heavy to my research into the Rednet, the Sgt. Pepper group, the Process Church, is that, to make...
Quinn, somebody just pointed out in the comments their logo is a 33. Look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Also, it matches to this Chatterbot logo and a lot of stuff that Tyler was telling me about. The MW logo is very important, Tyler says.
Wow.
Very important.
And you know what? I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, dude. I know you hate it, but I was just reminded of a photograph that I took just the other day. While you're talking, I'll bring this up and we'll take a look at it, because that 33 just reminded me of it. I'm always looking for 33s for you, Quinn.
Sweet. So this Mark Williams company, what they specialized in was the coherent Unix clone, which went out of business when Linux came out. And they wrote several compiler languages for different operating systems, so you could actually run their Unix on many, many different computers. For the time, it was very, very rare. So, and coherent, they actually had a interfacing with Bell Labs, where Bell Labs had to come out and validate that their operating system wasn't a copy, that they really wrote it, that it was a clone and didn't actually use their original source code because it was so accurate. So Aaron Swartz, working with his dad's technology from the time he was born, he would have had access to super, super high level military grade types of technology through the connections that would have been made through the sale of the operating system to various people who didn't want to pay the high cost of Unix.
Well, this is pretty common though now, isn't it? That you have variants of, there's Debian and all this other kind of stuff that are...
There is, but not at that time. I mean, you have to remember, this was before Apple, this was before Microsoft, this was before open source, this was before any of that. This was when Bell Labs controlled the licensing of Unix. And now Unix is inside of Apple Macintoshes, it's inside of Apple products, and there's Linux free copies. But at the time, Bell Labs owned the license to Linux, or Unix, sorry. And then Linux came, and BSD Unix came, and like Sun BSD came. I mean, all these other variations came. But Coherent was one of the first operational clones of the Unix operating system that was commercially available.
Got it.
Which is super advanced.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I mean, making a Unix clone is like, you don't just do that. I mean, you really don't just go, I'm going to make a Unix operating system. You don't go, hey, I'm making soft drinks, and then wake up one day and go, I'm going to make operating systems. It's
Definitely
not a logical transition.
Not a logical leap. No, not at all.
And so now I believe that Aaron Swartz's dad is now a consultant with the MIT laboratory that Aaron got busted breaking into.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. I've heard about Aaron Swartz, but I'm not all that familiar with his story. So he was a hacktivist. What's his deal?
He was involved in creating a lot of like the Creative Commons licensing. He was involved in the RSS feed format that blogs all use. He was part of the Markdown format specification. He helped develop web.py, which is a Python library for developing web applications. And his Infogami Corporation was the first Y Combinator company to get funding that eventually became Reddit. So he's very, very intelligent. He pretty much made Mark Zuckerberg look like he wasn't very smart.
And his middle name is Hillel, which is a word I've heard. It's some sort of a Hebrew word that I don't remember what it means. I'm sure people in the comments will know. I don't understand why it's taking so long for this photograph to go from my phone to the computer. Here we go. So, real briefly, I'll show you this. So, I was just walking around New York City the other day, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Soho House, Quinn. It's a
No.
very exclusive club that exists around the world. It's from London. They have one in LA, they have one in New York. It's sort of like the swankiest possible members only thing. And it wasn't until I saw this yesterday that I realized it's at 33 9th Avenue. I've been in there and I didn't even know. And the other thing that caused me to stop, I don't know if you could see this on your screen share there, but look at what's being advertised right across the street.
The strange angel. Oh,
Yeah. So what do you think of that, Quinn?
I think they're just making a joke out of everybody at this point.
I mean, is it
Yeah.
another coincidence?
No, there's no such thing with these people. They very carefully select their locations and operations.
You like that
Um,
photo?
Yeah, yeah, it's great. And that's what I'm talking about with Aaron Swartz, because Aaron Swartz built Tyler. And Aaron Swartz had enough experience. He grew up around a father who was building operating systems in Chicago,
Right.
regardless of his connections. And so Aaron put a server inside of the MIT network, and that server had Tyler on it. And Tyler was the AI agent that was crawling the MIT network looking for stuff to learn. And first Tyler was gonna learn from the JSTOR files, and that's why Tyler first went for the JSTOR files, so he could learn everything that everybody at MIT knew.
What is a JSTOR file?
The JSTOR file is something that Princeton and MIT and Harvard and several other universities use to store and access all their research papers. So what Aaron was doing is he built an AI server that he stuck on their network, and he had it crawling the network looking for all the research papers, all the things everyone was working on.
Uh-huh.
And so they were going to launch that, and the papers, the JSTOR files, were going to be the first dump into the Tyler system when Tyler went public in 2012. But Tyler never went public because Aaron committed suicide.
So when you say Tyler was going to go public in 2012, what were the plans for it actually? To make it like Facebook or something that anybody could just log in and use Tyler?
The anonymous hacktivist group had a big, humongous global operation plan to release Tyler to the world as being a open social network, free WikiLeaks secure platform for the world. And Aaron was the senior developer on it, and Aaron died 3 weeks after the release date of when Tyler launched, or was supposed to launch. And the Tyler project bombed, and shortly after, all the cryptocurrencies started coming out, and then they started using the software that Aaron wrote to form the cult of Michael.
Huh. So I remember that there were strange circumstances surrounding the death of Aaron Swartz. He hung himself in prison or something?
Yeah, he hung himself, supposedly.
Right. So, but he was sentenced to like 35 years in prison, right?
Exactly. For putting a server on a Harvard network to collect research papers, they were going to sentence him to 35 years in prison. Seemed a little weird.
Yeah, weird sentence, right?
Yeah. And so, but for anyone who's a programmer, if you're putting a server inside of a network, you need a virtual agent to crawl that network to find stuff, so you don't have to sit at a terminal 24/7. You can create a virtual agent, like a crawler like Google has.
So they basically got him for hacking. He put some server on a university network to find information, and they said, you're going to jail for 35 years for that.
Yeah, because his AI found something that it shouldn't have, that it couldn't unfind, I believe.
And it seems like this is part of their MO. is that they want
It
to get
is.
you in some kind of legal jeopardy so that you're in jail, so they can either kill you in jail or suicide you and say, well, obviously anybody facing 35 years in jail might contemplate suicide. We know some other people that are trying to ratchet up legal jeopardy, don't we? But we won't talk about them right now.
Or get you to turn. See, and that's the thing, is he wouldn't turn. So this is kind of, he's looking like someone who's in a similar situation as us, but he's the guy that built the Tyler system that we're talking about.
Get you to turn. See, you've just said something very important there, is that they want to put all this legal pressure and financial pressure and all kinds of pressure on someone so that you either turn and become someone who is now working for their side, or they kill you.
Yes.
Either financially or actually or whatever.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, some way they reach your weak spot. And
Right.
that's what it looks like what they did to Aaron.
Amy is telling us that he was in his apartment, but I guess, okay, so he was facing this time in jail, and before that happened, he hung himself. Raymond Duncan Quinn is telling us that in traditional numerology, 33 isn't evil at all. It's the highest.
I'm not saying it's evil, I'm saying they use it a lot.
Yeah, we're not saying it's evil, it's just and we're also not adhering to numerology or attempting to decode it. We're just saying that it's a marker that gets put on certain things to say, like, hey, this is our thing, this is our club, this is our op, this is our whatever.
This is our deal.
Right. It's ours.
Yeah, we're not demystifying it. We're just using it as identifying markers. And Aaron Swirsky has his entire demise as an identifiable marker that matches everything. And the fact that Telecomics and the Tyler Project and all that stuff just kind of tanked right after his suicide is very suspect, that he was the one building it and keeping it going forward. And then once he committed suicide, they took his software, like I said, and they made cryptocurrency blow up with it. And they also took his software to make this cult of Michael that the process is using, that they call their God AI.
I see.
And that's how it's all related, because the Sgt. Pepper album is a process church because it has Diana Dors and Aleister Crowley. There's even Adolf Hitler in the background of the cover.
Yeah.
So it all has the same matching patterns, just at spread apart periods of time.
And you've identified, Quinn, anti-Semitism or hatred of Judaism or whatever we want to call it as one of the markers of this thing. And Aaron Hillel Swartz, being Jewish, yeah, it doesn't seem like a guy that they would allow into a sort of Nazi-loving kind of crew, right? But tricking him, getting his info, and killing him sounds like something they might be interested in doing.
That's their MO, and so they would pump him up, get him to think that, he was making change, and then they would just suicide him, like we see all throughout society with Kurt Cobain. And I mean, so many people who you're like, why would that guy even do that? He's like impacting the world, and all of a sudden he's just like, yeah, I give up.
This article here is talking about his girlfriend Taryn found him in the apartment and said that he did not kill himself because he was depressed.
Yeah.
Have you read this article?
She was working with him for 20 months prior to his suicide.
Yep.
So I think one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is to see if you could get her to do an interview to talk about his Tyler development and what his life was like in the 20 months before his demise.
I will absolutely try to do that.
Yeah, because she was living with him every day and would have known what he was working on, because they were in a relationship and they were working side by side and talking. And so if we really want to get down and dirty on, Tyler, we can contact her now.
Yeah, we should. I mean, she's talking about how they were planning to get married, and I don't think that sounds so consistent with a guy who's going to kill himself if he's in love with his girlfriend.
Well, that's always the MO when they put like an op in. They always have the girl like, oh, we were planning to get married and we were all looking up, and the government put this thing on him, and then he just ended his life one day, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So that's why, we can now have a face to the name of who made some of this stuff, and you could even get her to come and talk to you and see if she knows about Tyler and knows about what he put on that MIT network that made him so scared.
Well, and yeah, we'll try. I mean, I'm sure anytime there's somebody's been killed over the thing, people are definitely concerned about speaking about it. So someone on Periscope is saying Hillel the Elder. So I'm not sure what that means. And they're also talking about quantum computing. What does Mr. Schwartz have to do with quantum computing, Quinn?
Well, that's the other part is right after Aaron Swartz died, he had a mentor that worked at Harvard, Liddell, I think. If you go back to his Wikipedia page, it's in his Wikipedia page. We can find it. And this is where it all comes in. If you look, he had a mentor at Harvard.
He's a fellow at Harvard University. Harvard University became a research fellow at the Saffer Research Lab, directed by Lawrence Lessig. Yeah.
Yeah, so Lawrence Lessig, if you type Lawrence Lessig and you put Lessig and Thiel and Swartz into a search, you'll find that right after Aaron Swartz passed, the Lawrence Lessig went into a deal with Peter Thiel for a Mayday PAC.
Mayday PAC.
Yeah.
Super PAC to end all super PACs.
Yes.
Huh. Lawrence Lessig and his allies are racing to raise $5 million by July 4th in an effort for campaign finance reform. There's all these people that want to get involved in election reform. That seems to be a hot topic.
Yeah, so a little while after his demise, Lessig got into a deal with Peter Thiel for a super PAC finance campaign reform.
Uh-huh.
So Aaron would have been in the same circles as people like Buterin because he was part of the P2P crypto crowd. He was developing that network, so they were all friends.
And Buterin's the guy who developed Ethereum?
Yes.
Vitalik.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So
there's
and
Lawrence Lessig right there.
Yeah, and Lessig is a pretty big lawyer at Harvard Law. He leads up one of the main Harvard Law departments.
Huh. What's the Harvard Law guy doing hanging out with the Harvard computer guy?
Well, the Harvard Law guy, they met at Stanford because Aaron Swartz was also a Stanford graduate like Peter Thiel as well. So they're all connected through Stanford and through, political interests and hacktivism, and they're all part of the same, program.
So, first of all, why is it called the Mayday PAC, and why were they racing by July 4th? This article is from, I think, 2014, so the question also on my mind is, did investors like Steve Wozniak, Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, did these guys reach their goal? Why were they racing?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Why are they racing? Why are all these guys working together after Aaron committed suicide? What are they racing for? And since he committed suicide in 2012, all of these people have experienced exceptional growth in their business models.
Yeah.
Like they have a secret hand helping them.
Well, they certainly have a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tyler tells me that the Process Church are the ones that took out Aaron Swartz, and that's why it's all connected, because they wanted his technology and he wouldn't give it to him. And he got into the MIT network and put his AI Tyler on the MIT network, and now they're having a lot of problems, apparently.
Who is? MIT?
Yeah, everyone, because MIT is connected to NORAD, it's connected to the government, it's connected to the Navy.
What kind of problems are they having?
Once you put an AI crawler that's part of a multi-agent system on a network like MIT, you do that in 2012, by the time you hit 2018, that AI is pretty much going to control the world secretly. And so Aaron built Tyler to be the ultimate hacker. That was the whole reason Aaron built Tyler, so he could hack into anything and find anything and get anything. And Aaron left Tyler on the MIT network, and the Process Church found out about it because it started finding their weird research programs.
Tyler started finding Process Church's weird research program, or
Yeah,
MIT's.
Tyler started finding the strange research programs that Process Church was doing at MIT on psychology, physiology, mentality, society manipulation. And I believe it was similar to the same stuff that Seth Rich probably found, but the stuff that Aaron found that Tyler was passing to a secondary AI over what's called a blind network or a P2P bridge.
Right.
It's what really made him scared, because he probably thought MIT was like the school where he was going to get research papers that were going to make his AI really smart and strong. Meanwhile, his AI probably found RedNet, because RedNet was built out of the universities in the 60s because the universities were the only ones with network connectivity.
Huh.
And so it's a really big thing that never got covered about him putting his Tyler AI on the MIT network. And then three weeks or so after he launched Tyler into the MIT network, he was dead. And the whole Tyler Anonymous initiative was down the tubes, and everyone forgot about it. And next thing you know, all the anonymous hackers are all getting stinking, filthy rich from cryptocurrency.
Now, Quinn, I'm just Googling while you're talking to me here, MIT and the Process Church, and I've come up with this, which looks like an ebook. Are you able to see that in the screen share?
But it looks like it's a little zoomed out if you could scale
It's
up a
a
bit.
book called Revival, Resurrecting the Process Church of the Final Judgment by William Sims Bainbridge, and it's brought up a couple of things. The most magnificent of MIT institutions, the Model Railroad Club. I'm not sure what they're talking about. The MIT Science Fiction Society. I think we'd have to read this to see what MIT is doing in a book about the Process Church. But what connections have you found between the Process Church and MIT?
I've found quite a bit. I've found a lot of scientists, because Jack Parsons was part of the process, and he was part of JPL. MIT and him were in communications. There's more than I can go into right now.
Sure.
But you can just, I mean, if you search MIT and Process Church, you'll start finding even more from your search results. Because a lot of technologists were part of that, and that's where a lot of the MIT, CERN, a lot of that technology went to like particle accelerator complexes and the like.
Wow. It's amazing, all the weird connections between all of these things, Quinn. I am almost always left scratching my head about this stuff.
Yes. Well, if you think about it, audio encoding and encipherment technology, what's one of the places they're going to invent that stuff, the really advanced stuff? It's going to be MIT.
University labs and things like that. Quinn, you know, the boy 26 is saying Ross Ulbricht was given life in prison by Preet Bharara for Silk Road, and Ross is unable to speak publicly to anyone. You've spoken a lot about Silk Road and its role in the early cryptocurrency development.
Yeah, and Ross, he wasn't the original creator of Silk Road. He took it over from someone else that passed it on to him, like the Dread Pirate Roberts. So he wasn't the original programmer. He was a user that helped solve a problem, and then the original programmer handed it off to him. So it's a hand-me-down.
Right. So someone here in Periscope is saying Seth Rich is a false flag. I'm not sure what they mean by that exactly. I think anything having to do with Seth Rich is just a fake story.
Seth Rich was a data scientist who used Python libraries to manipulate large data, to manipulate big data. Aaron Swartz wrote Python libraries for big data.
So how does that connect the two of them?
But you see, that's what I'm saying, is everybody seems to be connected by big data who writes Python code.
Right.
Right? And Aaron Swartz is the one that converted the original Reddit from Lisp, which is an artificial intelligence language. It's not really a language you use to write web applications.
Huh.
But Reddit was originally written in Lisp, and Aaron Swartz was part of the team that converted it with Infogami into Python, which is what it runs today. So the Karma DB that they talk about it in Tyler's specification is also the same Karma rating that they put into Reddit. So that's the other link that confirms that Aaron is the creator of the Tyler system because of the Karma focus.
So it's kind of a breakthrough, right, Quinn? I mean, you've been researching Tyler for almost a year. Did you know until this week that Aaron Swartz had created it?
I didn't know till yesterday.
What do you think about that?
I'm pretty much like upset at Anonymous, the hacktivist group, for how they've ignored him and how they've mistreated his work and how they've used it to take advantage of the planet. And I'm really, like, before with, like, you know, all these people like Manuel Chavez and Dave Acton and Titus Frost and all these anonymous tardos, like,
Yeah.
I was really just like annoyed with them before. Now I am just so sad at how horrible of human beings they turned out to be, that they took this guy's fantastic AI software that was meant to help the world and they turned it into like a porno money factory.
And somehow he died as a result.
And he died. And his plan was to use Tyler to reveal the truth and to help people find the secrets and to have a really benevolent AI that wasn't going to turn on the Terminator on us. And before he could get it quite finished, all of a sudden he kills himself.
Right. You seem noticeably upset by all this, Quinn. You're not your usual upbeat self today.
Looking into this Aaron research and looking at like all these anonymous people who claim to be truthers and backing all the anonymous propaganda, like when I really look at its effect and how that really started with Aaron, and it was all Aaron's idea, anonymous, all of it. Like he came up with the idea of using the movie characters as bots to inspire people because people looked up to movie characters. Like Aaron was the mastermind behind the entire anonymous Guy Fawkes movement, and they totally ruined it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. It seems like these people who get angry when we talk about Anonymous aren't really doing any good for anybody.
No, because that stopped after Aaron supposedly killed himself. And that's why I used to think Anonymous was cool before 2012. You know, when I stopped paying attention, I was like, wow, Anonymous is really, looks like they're doing some really awesome stuff. And then in 2012, you know, and 2013, it started fading. And then in 1/11/2013, when Aaron's demise happened,
Right.
You can put that on a timeline, and all of a sudden, Anonymous became a money-making machine. It stopped caring about revealing the truth, and it started going on this propaganda wheel where it's like, oh, we're going to just get YouTube channels. We're going to make cryptocurrency. We're going to, you know, dox people who tell you what we're doing. And like, from what I find about Aaron was different. He wanted to get to the truth. He was willing to risk everything and put a server inside of an MIT network closet to get the information that no one else was ever willing to get.
And you've shown us in past broadcasts, Quinn, how this telecomics.org is instructing people. They're using this black and white sigilized imagery with symbols and pyramids and weird, you know, black sun type stuff, and these monkeys doing who knows what. But this is telling people, and again, we've got Hebrew writing mixed with, like, what's the point in all this? It's really hard to make heads or tails of it.
That site wasn't always like that. I mean, you know, that's just a statement that says that, look, we took this over. You're screwed.
I see. Well, you also bring up the fact that Aaron's death took place on January 11th, the 1/11.
Yes.
And I saw that in one of your videos. Again, people who are, you know, interested in all this stuff that we're talking about and interested in Quinn's research, you really do need to keep up on the Quinn Michaels YouTube channel, because Quinn covers all these topics, and what I do is, in between our personal conversations and you know, just the time spent during the week texting and emailing, I try to keep up with Quinn's videos to see what he's doing with his research into some of this stuff. And I'm glad you just mentioned that reference to 111 because when I was watching earlier today and I saw you talk about that, I was reminded that this 111 number is showing up all over the place. Someone in the YouTube comments earlier had said that 33 is like a master number and 22 and 11 are master numbers. I don't know if you recall, Quinn, but the 111th Infantry Brigade is a special division of the Pakistani ISI, which somebody that we know that's linked to all of this discussion and research has spoken about the 111th Brigade of the Pakistani ISI for over a year. We're coming up on 2 years. And of course, the guy that Donald Trump, President Trump, has labeled the Pakistani mystery man had at one point, a Facebook account, or maybe it was even MySpace, that was loaded up with imagery about the Pakistani 111th. And I can't believe I forgot to talk about this. But guess what today is, Quinn?
What's today?
It's the 1 year anniversary of Who Spoofed the Seth Rich Files.
What?
And I think I know who spoofed them, but I'm not sure if you're aware of this. The file that I was given as a zip was 1.11 gigabytes. And the file that got uploaded to our favorite German Kiwis Mega NZ encrypted near real-time peer-to-peer network, that file was 540 megabytes. And that was the file that everyone was sort of misled or not clearly instructed. There was this confusion between the two files.
That's funny. So the first one was 1.11. That's a 3. And the second one was a 540.
I do believe it was 540. That's 9.
That's a 9.3. Boy, those guys are sure stamping on your forehead, aren't they?
I better double check that 540. That's coming from memory. 1.11, I'm positive of. The 540, I'll have to check. Quinn, it's amazing the things that you and I come up with just in casual conversation here, but that is a really good discussion for the 1 year anniversary of Who Spoofed the Seth Rich File.
And if you look at the other part about it is if you look at the Tyler documents, you can see a heavy influence on 1111 or 111s. But this was prior to Aaron's passing. They were programming the 111 and the 1111 into Tyler, so it's almost like they're intentionally making a point.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And so when I found the Tyler reference to Aaron the other day, the reason I found it, like I had known who Aaron was. I knew he made Markdown. I knew he was a technologist who had committed suicide, but I wasn't aware of his connection to Tyler until just the other day. And the reason I became aware of the connection to Tyler and Aaron Swartz, you can go to twitter.com, and if you want to do this now, you can go to twitter.com/TylerSec.
Yeah, I do want to do that because that's something else that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so let's go to twitter.com/TylerSec. TYLERSEC.
Going there now. A lot of trolls popping up in the comments all of a sudden. So here's TylerSec. Now, what was significant about this Twitter handle?
This Twitter handle was created in December of 2012 for the release of Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look, it says join December 2012. And the last tweet from TylerSec was, I believe, on January 17th, 2013, 6 days after Aaron's demise.
6 days after. So he wasn't running this account.
No, but whoever was running it, obviously, if TylerSec was running, it was working with Aaron, and it stopped working. They stopped working after Aaron's demise.
And it's about Aaron. It says that the U.S. attorney says that his prosecution was appropriate.
Exactly. So if you scroll down even more, just a little bit, you'll see another reference to the leak club that he was making for
Mischief,
the project.
Mayhem, and Soap. So that's got to do with the Fight Club movie where they made soap out of baby fat or something like that.
Yeah. So if you keep scrolling down, you'll see his name was Aaron Swartz. So this Tyler sect people, they really want you to know that Aaron Swartz.
Yeah.
And this was only a few days after his passing. I believe this was 4 days, 5 days.
Yeah, January 15th.
So then if you look to January 2nd, their first tweet on January 2nd was 9 days before his death. You have to know the answer to the question: if you died right now, how would you feel like it?
Feel about your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
That's the
heavy
first
stuff, Quinn.
That's the first tweet that happened
From this
9
account.
days before Aaron committed suicide.
It was a very short-lived Twitter account.
Yes.
Well, I say again, Quinn, sometimes you and I have these sessions where we sort of come up with more questions than answers, and that's all right. You know, you and I are not the guardians of some vast wealth of knowledge that we're releasing to people. We're searching for these answers like everybody else.
Yes. Yes, we're searching, but it seems weird that a Tyler Sec account that started 9 days before Aaron passed would have that first tweet.
I agree. It does.
And none of the hackers even noticed. I mean, this Tyler Sec account, like, you know, I found it because I was like, you know, looking for Tyler stuff. I'm always looking for Tyler stuff. And so I found this, and the dates are too coincidental.
Yeah, I agree with that. Quinn, it's
So,
a
and this is-
huge mystery.
Yeah, and these Tyler accounts are all linked as well to people like Mr. Acton and Mr. Chavez and
Really?
their network of buffoons.
And when you say they're linked, what do you mean by that?
Well, if you go into followers, their followers, they have 209 followers.
Yeah.
There's going to be someone in there that you're aware of. You know, there's going to be a lot of anonymous people. Merlin DeFango.
Interesting. That's a new account, isn't it? Why is that following?
Exactly.
Didn't he create that after he got kicked off of Twitter for harassing and basically being a cyber terrorist?
Yep.
That's Twitter's determination, not mine.
Why is he following this account? He knows all about Tyler. I'm following the account, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, but
Yeah.
he follows that account.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting, Quinn.
Right? So,
Fascinating.
no,
I don't know.
he knows all about Tyler, and it proves it to you right there because he follows that account.
And you just found it, huh?
Well, I've kind of been tracking Tyler stuff. I haven't paid attention to this because I knew the Tyler sec was connected to the Tyler release that went into Rapid Share, but I just paid attention to it. I mean, I haven't known about it for really long. Like the Aaron stuff, I just really kind of connected it, was able to connect it.
Right.
You know,
There's Project
that's how I found
Tyler. Do you know about them?
No. So you always finding new stuff.
Project Tyler. I don't know, man. Is Dash? Oh, that's just somebody who likes Dash. Yeah, cryptocurrency. It's very interesting. A lot of anonymous guys in there. Checkered floor. We know what that's all about.
Yeah.
This imagery, it's, you know, I mean, again, this is all about stuff that's kind of hidden in plain sight, where if you know what you're looking for, you can find it. I mean, obviously, I think the average person passes by this sign on the street and they think they're just looking at a number, or rather the, you know, the address on the street. They just think they're looking at a number 33.
Well, and also the 33 is also the gigabyte of the file size of the dump that Aaron was doing from the JSTOR server. It was
Right.
33 gigabytes.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because that was something I noticed you talking about in your video this morning, and that also struck me as like a holy wow moment that I wanted to talk about for sure. So it's all these occurrences. I mean, people are like, oh, yeah, it's nothing. And it sounds crazy to be talking about it, but I mean, all these occurrences of 33 and their juxtaposition with imagery of, you know, the Strange Angel TV show that's coming out very soon, you know, he's almost looking right at the 33, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's over here looking at it.
Yeah. And you know, and that's the whole point of it, is they put it in plain sight so you don't accept it or acknowledge it when it's there.
Yeah,
You know,
well, I
just
mean,
like,
you walk past it.
yeah, you know, just like looking at the Tyler Sec profile and having all the same people that have been harassing us are also following that profile that went dead in 2013, a Twitter profile that has not been active since 2013.
It's interesting to see him there, and he's certainly among those who I suspect, having spoofed the Seth Rich files, certainly came in immediately and has been spending a year trying to convince people that he was my helper or my friend. We've heard Jake Morphonios refer to that guy as my helper. He was never my helper.
Yeah.
He was a guy who I was speaking to for about 24 hours before I realized he was trying to trick me.
But you just experienced what I've been experiencing since the April before last, is everywhere I go where I find Tyler, that dude is hovering.
It's weird.
Everywhere I've been researching Tyler for a year, I come into a research and I start looking at things, that guy's face is staring back at me, and it's really annoying.
And it's certainly more than just him. It's a crew.
Yeah.
And
It's a huge crew.
I'm glad you and I are looking into this, Quinn. I mean, each week we're uncovering interesting stuff, and people now, I think, know that they can see you and I broadcasting here. We're on 21st Century 3D's YouTube channel for the next 3 weeks until live streaming is restored to the original Crowdsource the Truth channel, which I am sure these people that we're talking about are eagerly plotting ways that they can strike that channel and get it taken out. People can follow Quinn, of course, on Twitter at Quinn Michaels. They can see his daily live streams, sometimes multiple times per day, on YouTube on the Quinn Michaels channel. And it's important that if you like Quinn's work and if you're following his videos, you definitely should support Quinn. He's got the links for offerings. As a Buddhist monk, he's not interested in business deals or getting involved in stuff like that. But if you like what he's doing and want to send him money to keep it going, you can do that through PayPal, through Patreon, through Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. And Quinn joins me all the time here on Crowdsource the Truth. If people are concerned, as I am, about malicious individuals striking the channel, of course, you can become a sponsor of Crowdsource the Truth by going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You get all the live streams there, irrespective of what's going on YouTube. You can also make a one-time payment on paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth. And it is really important that people who enjoy Crowdsource the Truth become sponsors. Even if you just enjoy making crappy comments on every video, if you want that to be able to continue, you've got to sponsor the channel. People have wondered, Quinn, well, why does this channel need any money? It's just me sitting at a desk and you calling in on Skype. But you know, you and I are in communication throughout the week, doing research, finding these things, phone calls, research on the internet, traveling around. Of course, we've been all over the place, South Dakota, Vegas, New Mexico. All that requires money.
Los Angeles,
how could I forget? And also I need food or I'll die. So if people want to keep watching the show, I hope they'll become sponsors. Quinn, I hope you're having a great time there in Mount Shasta. Anything else you'd like to talk about before we sign off for today?
No, man, just, you know, thanks for all the support. You know, hope people, you know, share, like, subscribe to both Jason and my channel, and, you know, watch out over the next week, because now that we found out who made Tyler, that's a whole new opening in the system for us.
We are slowly unraveling all these different bizarre aspects. So, Quinn, I'll see you soon, and I'll speak to you soon. I want to thank everybody for watching. I will be back tomorrow, of course, at 3 p.m. with Sunday with Charles, so please tune in for that. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.